Hello and welcome to our content series where we explain the Cuyahoga Justice Reform Framework. As you can tell, I read a lot of books, so I'm pretty smart. Cuyahoga County has a long and ugly history with incarceration, and we want to put an end to it. For more on the history of our county jail, check out our 18-part series called The History of Incarceration on our socials, which is going to be up there somewhere. Now that we've covered where we've been and how we got here, we're shifting our focus to the future and what could be with a little American ingenuity and Cleveland can do. This series will explore our Cuyahoga Justice Reform Framework, which you can read in full on our website here. Now from the jump,
Now, let me be clear.
This is not an abolitionist report. That isn't because we disagree with abolitionists. We think Angela Davis, Dorothy Roberts, Sojourner Truth, Harriet Tubman, John Brown, Nat Turner, and every other abolitionist are amazing, brilliant, and uncrowned saints. But we also know where we are. If the county were to suddenly decide to abolish its jail, the cities would then need to agree, and then the state of Ohio and federal government would revoke funding or invade. And we don't see that happening. If we can't have abolition, we need, at the very least, a facility which will ensure those who visit it won't have to come back. Since the founding of Cuyahoga County, citizens in the criminal justice system have been subjected to inhumane treatment and neglect. Our objective is to reform the criminal justice ecosystem in order to prevent future harm from being done and establish a better county for ourselves, built upon our shared values. The basis of a humane system of criminal justice is a system of ethical values, of concepts and principles that support the infrastructural and operational integrity of criminal justice. Both systems must support a shared conception of criminal justice. There are three competing types of criminal justice. There's retributive, restorative, and transformative justice. Retributive justice is based on the concept of retribution, which is when someone breaks the law, they must be punished. Restorative justice is based on restoration, where we focus on restoring everyone who is impacted by the crime to where they were before the crime was committed. Transformative justice is based on transformation, where we focus on the elimination of the precursors to criminality beyond the scope of the traditional justice system. We propose a fourth type called holistic justice, where we combine restorative and transformative justice to achieve societal change while recognizing the limitations we face. In order to change the criminal justice system, we got to define holistic justice. So we created our pyramid of reform with 5 building blocks. These are respect for human dignity, access to civic institutions, restoration for past harms, avoidance of further harm, and finally at the top, reformation across society. We'll explore each of these building blocks in detail later in this series. We based our model on the principles of restorative practice from the Restorative Justice Council in the United Kingdom and the Reflections on Transformative Justice by Mia Mingus. Up there. At the base of the pyramid is respect for the dignity of all persons, because at the end of the day, we're all people, we all participate equally in humanity. As an ethical principle, respect for human dignity permeates all ethical decisions and must be promoted at all levels of government, in all practices, and among all people. Just as civil rights are rooted firmly in respect for the whole person, so too must justice be a full expression of respect for human dignity, without compromise. Where compromise is made, cruelty and brutality thrive. This is unacceptable and only leads to the current situation that we face today. The second piece of our pyramid is universal and indiscriminate access to civic institutions. The concept of a crime is a matter of the public. Over the years, we've decided what is and what isn't acceptable in American society. Therefore, all members of society must have equal, equitable, full, and meaningful access to civic institutions. For criminal justice, it's incumbent upon government to provide radical access to civic institutions as a means for people to assert their rights and to escape persecution. Where civic institutions are inaccessible, tyranny finds a home and prospers. As we implement holistic justice, we must address the past harms caused by crime before we can move forward. While the United States suffers from overcriminalization, there are some behaviors that unambiguously are harmful. Things like abduction, trafficking, sexual violence, bad. I think we all can agree on that. The first step to overcome the harms caused by crime is to engage in restorative practices to make all victims whole. Restoration must be all-encompassing, embracing open dialogue to achieve mutual well-being. Just like recovering from an illness, restoration takes time, but the outcome is worth the effort. Drawing further upon holistic justice, restoration of past harms isn't the end-all be-all response to criminality. Holistic justice calls for a cessation of harms. Whereas restoration addresses harms to the community, transformation addresses harms to society. Avoiding further harm comes in many varieties. For every way someone can commit a crime, we need just as many ways to heal from it. Just as people are unique, so too is criminal justice. This means we need unique programming that works with people where they are to ensure that interventions we implement do not perpetuate the cycle of violence. The reformation of society to achieve equitable participation for all people. Criminality doesn't occur in a bubble, and in a progressive society, people are offered support to ensure that the situation that they were born into doesn't define them. The United States has a flawed past, and Cuyahoga County is no different, but we must build an ecosystem that mobilizes the resources at our disposal to achieve pro-social goals. We live in what was once the wealthiest city, and that can't be right. We live in what was once the wealthiest city in the entire world, in what is currently the wealthiest country. This isn't utopian, it's just common sense. On September 26, 2023, the Cuyahoga County Council voted to approve the Garfield Heights site for the new county jail. They arrived at a purchase price of $38.7 million for 72 acres of vacant land, about 11 miles from the current Justice Center. Council must reconsider its plan to construct a jail in Garfield Heights. Instead, we propose they use this site to establish a unique institution organized to contribute to the rehabilitation of especially violent persons. People who suffer from criminality caused by mental illness or substance abuse, serial violent offenders, and others who need more significant interventions. Researchers Kelsey Engstrom and Esther F.J.C. Van Ginneken. So, Esther F.J.C. Van Ginneken. There we go. Synthesized the academic literature on penology and identified 16 factors that impact penal architecture design. They found that personal living space is impacted by lighting, use of materials, aesthetics, noise, views, temperatures, air quality, and privacy. For general prison space, these factors are size and crowding, visitation, nature, facility layout, secure technology, structural age, accessibility, and utilities. So how do we make a good jail? Well, the research on penal conditions is sporadic, but there are some things that we do know. There are 8 factors that impact the personal living space of inmates. Inmates should have regular access to natural light and control over artificial light. They should have some control over temperature and access to climate controls, ventilation, and circulated air, as well as limited personal privacy. Spaces should be constructed with soft materials like carpet and wood, and should use colors, shapes, and textures that create a sense of normalcy, not a piss-stained shithole like a normal jail. Finally, inmates should be free from unwanted noise and have unobstructed access to nature. In addition to personal living space, the research has identified 8 factors that impact the general facility space for inmates. Facilities should serve small populations in single occupancy rooms and offer welcoming, in-person visitation spaces. Facilities should have limited personal privacy and campus living, mitigated by minimally intrusive, covert, and subtle surveillance and control features. Inmates should have regular access to nature and accessibility accommodations as needed. Finally, facilities, including utility systems, should be maintained and regularly assessed for wear and tear. A reformed criminal justice system begins with humane penal facilities built upon these factors. Good statistics about the Cuyahoga County Jail are hard to come by. The state of Ohio estimates the county's 3-year recidivism rate for 2016 to be about 35.7%. However, the Marshall Project found that the county had a 70% all-time recidivism rate from 2016 through 2021. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Compared to Halden Prison, which is often cited as an example of ethical penal design, the numbers are shocking, as Norway has a national 3-year recidivism rate from 2010 through 2014 of just 24%. Factoring recidivism into the lifetime cost of a facility is difficult, but in the next segment, we're going to attempt to do just that. In the CJRF, we present a detailed cost analysis of a humane institution in Garfield Heights. Because of difficulties presented in recidivism, we took a holistic approach to calculating the cost of recidivism by considering the consultant's estimates to repair the jail to a usable state and estimating the time cost of the facility. We then applied the time cost of the usable life, which we estimate to be around the year 2067. We estimate our model to cost about $500 million less than the consultants in total. We also estimate the impact of recidivism on lifetime cost and found that our model saves nearly from recidivism alone. But the issue of cost doesn't end here. It's difficult to predict the cost of anything, let alone building a penal facility, especially when the government is your customer. In the CJRF, we identified 2 comparable facilities in the United States and analyzed the Halden prison in Norway. The best predictor of the future is the past, so we also considered the current Justice Center as a comp. At 1,900 beds, we estimated that a humane facility could cost about $1 billion. That's what the Justice Center cost to build. So we could build the same facility, but better, for the same price it took to build the shitty one. Inhumanity isn't cost effective, it's just cruel. In the next segment, we'll discuss the impact of shared use of the county jail by city governments. Right now, the Cuyahoga County Jail is shared between the city, the county, the state, and federal governments. This means the county has to plan for its own needs and also those of all of its partners. In fact, county detainees only occupy about 64% of the jail, with an average arrest to arraignment timeline of 32 days for felony cases. It's no shock the jail is overcrowded. By restricting use of the jail only to the county, we could save over $420 million, blaze it. And this doesn't factor in the charges people are held on. If we remove people held from other facilities and on warrants, we could save around 25% of construction costs and nearly 81% of lifetime costs. Now that sounds like a deal to me. Informed by humane penal design and the goal of holistic justice, we've designed a novel rehabilitation campus that rests on only 4.3 acres of the Garfield Heights plot. There are a few things to note. First is the use of different buildings to serve different purposes, ensuring space is dedicated to all critical functions of the complex. To the east, we're met with an administrative building and parking garage. Moving west, we encounter 4 buildings for healthcare, education, job training, and visitations. We then come upon a commissary and dining facility among residential buildings surrounding a recreational quad. Finally, residents will have access to community gardens, an indoor gym, and multi-faith facility. You know, I often spend hours each night waiting for your mother to turn off. Okay. Hours. Picture this. Each room is single occupancy and 110 square feet. There's wood flooring, mid-tone walls, twin bed, storage, a desk, a TV, an external sink, and an ensuite. Again, the goal is to treat residents like the human beings they are, not animals. So the room has large windows to offer natural light, and residents have limited control over temperature and artificial lighting. This design prioritizes privacy and control to empower residents to participate in interventions for their own benefit. I know this sounds different than jail cells you've seen before, and I'm sure you've got some questions. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and we will post an FAQ to address questions that you might have. Cuyahoga County is fully committed to building a new county jail in Garfield Heights. The funding is in place, the plans are in the works, but we cannot let this immense and unique opportunity slip us by. Cuyahoga County has a history of cruelty in its jails, and there is no sign that this new facility is going to be any different. The county executive may be using different rhetoric to describe the plans, but the reality is much of the same. Bringing the Cuyahoga Justice Reform Framework to fruition requires buy-in from all stakeholders, but most importantly, from groups in the community. If you would like to help, reach out by email and check out our website and socials. It's now time to dig in and fight a fight worth fighting. We hope you'll join us.